So those are all the reasons as to why they could have done the traffic stop. And what you're saying in the video is correct. You know, if it's a traffic stop, why not just give me a ticket? When the officer asks you to get out of the vehicle, that is not a necessarily something that comes from any of the amendments with the law. There's federal law, state law, and then case law that helps create federal law and state law. So the officer was able to ask you to step out of the car. Not saying everything next.
I ain't commit no crime, so he was not. How's that?
I know. So it's because there is a case, a federal case that became federal law. The case is called MIMS. It's the MIMS case, and to prioritize officer safety, which this is, you know, I know. Just hear me out for a second. That is when he was allowed to ask you to get out of the car, which is why I kind of brought up the stuff earlier about Miss Robertson. Everything that happened with her, while it doesn't apply to you, they're gonna say that probably her acting the way she did, and
but he stirred that up.
Exactly.
He did that on purpose.
Right. I'm not saying we don't have an argument against it, because why should her behavior apply to you when you're being respectful, giving the guy the stuff that you need? She's a white lady. She can act how she wants to act and have different repercussions, clearly, based on her not getting charged. But that's why they asked you guys all basically to step out of the car. Is they're going to say, based on this case ruling, that it's to prioritize their safety, and they just need the reasonable suspicion to do that. The reasonable suspicion part is going to be even weirder, because I really think the only reasonable suspicion of why they were afraid of you guys is A, probably biases, B, this narcotics investigation, and C, the fact that she allegedly didn't want to identify herself. They see she has a warrant, and then she kind of starts.
They didn't even know she had a warrant.
I know. I'm not saying that. And
so
what
you
her
said
behavior
you said they
shouldn't
see.
apply to you, but just they're gonna say, and they're gonna say that her freaking out
he knew he was gonna get one
scared them,
passenger,
and her not identifying themselves. They're like, oh, that was suspicious, and then they go find a warrant, and they're like, oh. Okay, not saying it's right. This is all about kind of a chain of events, but when a lot of things are happening at the same time, you know, the lawyers, me and the state, are going to have to argue kind of like this.
So what does the Fourth Amendment clause state?
We're getting there. So you're pulled out of the car, right? Due to officer safety. The Fourth Amendment does protect you against illegal, warrantless search and seizures. However, there are exceptions to the Fourth Amendment. These exceptions are not all applicable or not going to apply, but once again, this is a big confusing situation, and I'm going to explain what I think the state is going to say and what they're going to do. So, you're pulled out of the car, and there's a couple different things going on. So this is kind of where we go back into like the Terry stop and frisk area. So that just means a Terry stop, which we've gone from a traffic stop to now a Terry stop, pretty much. So once again, we're dealing with reasonable suspicion that a person is involved in criminal activity. That's going back to this crap about the narcotics investigation.
But I understand that, but that ain't got nothing to do with them stopping.
I know. I'm not saying this makes any sense.
No, but I'm just saying, but you're making it make sense. Yeah, but it don't make sense because it ain't got nothing to do with it.
I know. I'm talking through this. I'm not saying that I'm what.
Yeah,
I'm not
from
saying,
their point of view.
So this is what I think the cops are thinking and what they're doing and why they think. You know, I don't know if they said it during this investigation, but the cops, they don't necessarily think like a lawyer. So they think that their behavior and what they do in an investigation, a prosecutor is just going to be able to take it and run with it. That's not necessarily true. If I were a prosecutor, I actually would try to tell the cops how to do their job, but that doesn't happen. So the prosecutor's basically going to have to come in and argue to cover the cops' behavior and what they did. So They pull you out of the car. They were able to pull you out of the car. I don't think they were necessarily able to or allowed to stop and frisk you and search you at that point. Because they searched you before they read you your Miranda rights.
Right, that's why they violated my right.
You heard that on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, they stop and frisk you. And the
Put
reason for
cuffs on
that
you.
is because of this narcotics investigation. So they're already thinking in their head that they're going to find narcotics or guns or whatever. They search you. Immediately they find the drugs on you, which is also super suspicious that they did that. But they find the drugs. They find the drugs, and then they read you the Miranda law or the Miranda rights.
Yeah.
Miranda rights is part of the Fifth Amendment, which you already talked about. It's supposed to be read to you before a custodial interrogation.
Right.
So that brief 2 minutes or a minute or however long it is when he has you get out of the car and walk to his car, our argument is clearly you didn't think you could leave. You were in custody.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, he was asking you questions. When you were in the car, there's arguments to be made that is also a custodial interrogation because if you were to have got out of the car and ran away, you would have been arrested, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Miranda law and this, everything involving this area of the law that we're dealing with, think about it kind of like, you obviously did your research. It's kind of vague, and it's always going to be written in a way that is kind of left into an interpretation in favor of the police, right? So custodial interrogation is this weird legal term, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you and I think of it to mean is like someone in custody and they're, you see on TV.
No, custodian mean that you're not being
just
detained.
Not allowed to leave.
Right.
It's not even that you're not allowed to leave. You feel like you can't leave.
Right.
And you would have felt like you couldn't leave when all those officers surround your car and they start asking you information.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of them finding the drugs on you, I think is where our main case lies. Because in that brief 2 minutes where they're surrounding your car, you give them everything you need. She starts freaking out. Then get you out of the car for officer safety, which they can technically do.
So how does
but
that?
I'm not saying that they should have used her behavior to reflect on you when you had an officer on you, she had an officer on her. Clearly, they pulled her out of the vehicle and detained her. So why did they need to continue that for you? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're on the car. They pull the drugs off of you, and they immediately start reading you the Miranda rights. I would argue as your attorney that when they found the bag of drugs on you, that is where I think our argument lies in what you were talking about, a suppression hearing either done before your case or at the trial where that evidence was illegally obtained. As I kind of explained, the cops are going to say it's not illegally obtained based on this narcotics investigation. But there's a lot of things happening at once. The detectives that were doing this narcotics investigation are not the same people that pulled you over.
The question is, was there a prayer for my client, Colin McDade? That'd be a good question. No, they was not. They was up there on a sting operation. Which so that excludes me.
At you, yeah.
Right, so that excludes me. It don't have nothing to do with my client, Mr. McDade, right? No.
Right.
Okay. So now the second question is, y'all noticed, because it said in the beginning too, y'all noticed that Mr. McDade's windshield was cracked. Why would y'all allow the client to leave the parking lot where y'all was having the sting operation?
Right, that's true.
So that'd be another question. So then on top of that, y'all job y'all job description is to do what? Serve and protect, right?
Yeah.
So did you neglect your job description when you allowed Mr. McDade to prolong and leave off the premises?
That's true. There is also something in the law that when they're allegedly trying to stop someone, it's supposed to be in a time period that's necessary to make that stop.
Right.
Yeah.
So you avoided that, right? So now you telling me it was okay in your job description, you were agent for the state, that was okay for Mr. McDade to leave the parking lot and to get on the expressway and not only put himself in danger, but everyone else around him due to a cracked windshield.
Right.
How is this not severe in this case? You cannot overlook this. Now it leads to y'all pulled my client over, and y'all asked him for his identification, which he applied and had everything to you. It shows in the video that he got his ID, his paperwork ready for you.
Right.
You know, and then he asked you what was the reason for him being stopped. You told my client that the reason and the purpose for you stopping him was due to a cracked windshield. So now this happened, and the passenger, she was excited. How does the passenger actions and behavior reflect on my client?
Right.
He was complying with the law.
Yep.
He applied by the law, but did the state, because I'm fighting the state, right?
Yeah.
So did the state violate Mr. McDade constitutional rights?
Right, and this is what the suppression hearing would be like.
Right, so I don't want to leave the front part out because it all lead up to it. Because it's all storyline.
Right.
You know what I mean? To
I'm
lead
not saying
to.
I'm gonna leave it out. It's just, this is important. This narcotics investigation is important.
But
it's just we don't have I'm not saying it's not important.
You know what's more important?
It's just in my thing. I'm agreeing with you. What happened at the Wheeler mission is
we want that.
the gas station outside.
Yeah, we want at the Wheeler mission or the gas station by the Wheeler mission. You feel? We was on night in Delaware.
Right.
So
But
my nephew walked it
saying
from the Wheeler
is
mission to
you
the
get what I'm
gas
saying.
station. You know what I mean? So
Right, so
they
they
not knowing that my nephew was in the shelter. They not knowing where he walked from. All they know is he walked up. All they know is he was up there with a group of people that had nothing to do with me.
Right. I'm not
So
saying about the Wheeler mission in that instance. I'm saying generally the IMPD is running these kind of investigations involving people at the Wheeler mission. They're staking out that whole
Right, I understand
area.
that. I understand that, right? So they ain't got nothing to do
all the
with
way down to this gas station.
Right,
too.
still that's
a
right, but that's still exclude me because
right.
I don't be over there.
I know.
I just went to go pick my nephew up. So they seen a group of people standing around my nephew.
Yep.
When my nephew walked to my vehicle, a group of people surrounded my vehicle.
Right.
And then we proceed to leave.
Right.
Right? So now, my thing is, once we got to the gas station, and then y'all asked my client to identify himself and license registration and all this and that, he did that, and then you asked my client to step out the vehicle. What was the reason for you asking my client to step out the vehicle if you ain't committed no crimes? And y'all stopped him for a windshield crack. Okay, we understand that y'all pulled the passenger out the passenger side of the car due to her behavior.
Right.
But when it comes to my client, what was the proper cause of y'all pulling him out the vehicle when y'all told him that y'all stopped him for the windshield being cracked? Y'all supposed to give my client a ticket or tow his car or allow him to call AAA, right? Y'all did not do none of that.
Right.
So what y'all did was, because you used the law and you said due to your safety. How are you in harm's way when my client, both his hands is hanging out the window?
Yeah.
And his demeanor is calm.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So now the thing is, y'all put handcuffs on my client for what?
Right.
Was he being
I agree
detained?
with you.
Was my client being detained?
That's where the line
Because
is very
at this point,
going on.
because at this point he ain't commit no crime. So at this point y'all putting cuffs on my client for what reason?
Right. They're saying it's this narcotics
So he
thing.
literally
Okay,
starts-
but y'all saying y'all was up here at the gas station at approximately 2:35 for a sting operation, which ain't had nothing to do with my client. Y'all ain't know if my client was coming up there, but when my client pulled up, he pulled up and picked up his nephew, which was surrounded around a lot of people that got into my client's vehicle, which ain't had nothing to do with my client.
Right. I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
So now y'all put handcuffs on my client and y'all find drugs on, right? What was the proper cause and reason for y'all to put handcuffs and detain my client from a windshield stop?
Right. And I think to show, remember, I'm just laying it out for you as your attorney, to show this probable cause to pull you out of the car, one, they're gonna, as we talked about, use that case MIMS that for officer safety. But exactly like you're saying, why would they be afraid of officer safety? Because of this Piece
And-
5
and-
says
and- and then- and then
about
on
this
top-
narcotics
and-
investigation that a known narcotics user that we don't know who that person is.
But
And then they're saying on the body cam that they saw a hand-to-hand. That's not in there.
Right.
And I don't have any footage of that. So I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
I'm agreeing with you on that part.
Right. So if y'all
Here's
seen
what-
it, so hold
can I
on.
tell you-
This was
Yeah,
killed.
go ahead.
This will kill everything. Y'all see a hand to hand at a gas station,
All the way back
and
there.
then y'all allow him to move and leave the gas station, and then stop him on 46 in Lafayette from 9th and Delaware. And y'all seen this transaction?
And still ask you
Why
to
y'all ain't
say
stop
you
him
did.
and get him then?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That don't make sense. So again, did y'all see my client? Now we on the oath. Did y'all not see my client, Mr. McDade, make a hand-to-hand transaction?
And you never were out of the car.
Never
You
out the
picked someone-
vehicle.
You picked 2 people up, right?
Did y'all, and there's another question, did y'all see my client, Mr. McDade, get out his vehicle at the gas station, BP, on 9th and Delaware? No.
Okay. So I hear you on everything. And I think we have a good argument about what we just talked about. I'm gonna be generous and say it's a 5-minute thing. This area of law, a lot of things happen at the same time, and how we have to look at it is almost by a second play-by-play.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm ignoring the narcotics investigation, it's just, here's what I think they're gonna say. So, they're gonna probably try to say that regardless of this narcotics investigation, what we just talked about, they pulled you over for the traffic violation, Miss Robertson, and all of that, they were afraid of officer safety. They didn't read your Miranda rights until they had already found the drugs, but you were already in a custodial interrogation. And then
So
they're
is-
also going to throw in this Terry stop situation. Here's the next part that I need to tell you that's very, very important, and I need you to listen to me very closely.
Mhm.
So after they read you your Miranda rights, you say, which I'm not saying, I'm gonna have to figure this out as your attorney, and you're gonna have to bear with me what this is going to affect on your case.
Mhm.
You say statements like, which, remember, we're still gonna try to suppress the drugs out.
That's okay.
I don't have any drug labs for the drugs, so I don't know what they are.
Mhm.
But there's body cam of you saying that it's weed mixed with crack. So we're gonna have to deal with that.
That's cool. I get high.
I'm just letting you know. So they're gonna try to use that against you as an admission. What they need to technically have
I'm
is
going
that
to programs right now.
That's good. That's good. But I'm just making you fully aware that even, we're gonna do this suppression argument and we're gonna try to keep the drugs out
Mm-hmm.
completely.
Mhm.
And that's probably gonna ruin their case if the judge grants it. I don't know if the judge is going to grant it because they're gonna bring up, well, he said this, and then there's statements later on where you say, hold on, just as your attorney, I'm not saying that we'll deal with it, it happens. You honestly did the right thing in the circumstance, probably. You tell them that it's weed mixed with crack, cocaine, interchangeable words that are used throughout the footage, and then you call someone and you're on the phone and you say, I was picking up my nephew, someone was gonna do my hair and we were gonna get high.
Mm-hmm.
We will deal with that as that comes. If we can get the drugs suppressed,
What's wrong?
none of that will matter.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Shit, where the drugs come
Remember what you're charged with.
Yeah.
It might not matter.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're gonna have to deal with that eventually. If we get the drugs out completely, we won't have to worry about it.
Okay.
But if for whatever reason we can't get the drugs suppressed, we have other things to argue.
Mhm.
I don't have labs for these drugs. I don't really care that you said what you thought it was. It doesn't mean that's what it is. People get ripped off all the time. People sell oregano and plaster from the walls.
You know what's crazy about
As a
that?
state lab and a state-funded institution, and the police and the prosecutors, when someone is charged with a drug crime, to prove it guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, they should get those drugs tested by a lab to show me what it really is.
Yes.
I don't have those yet, and I'm not going to bring up to the prosecutor that I don't have those, because if I never get them, we can also possibly maybe get the drugs excluded that way down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you that everything leading up to them reading your Miranda rights after they pull the drugs out of your pocket, right? That 5-minute interaction we saw on body cam from when they pull you over to when you're cuffed on the car and they have the bag. That is where what you're saying comes in.
Right.
What you're saying comes in.
Right.
And they very well might have. I'm not saying they did it. I think they did. But like I said, we're going to have to argue it out and we're going to have to talk about it. And I'm also, even though this is strange, weird, and I do feel like it's two different, I know I just went through a lot of things, but it's two different investigation stops, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they could say, oh, it's a valid traffic stop regardless of this. What I'm looking for is I need some type of discovery on this.
Mm-hmm.
I need some type of discovery on this. I don't think the detectives were wearing body cam. I don't care. They should have had notes. Why were they investigating this area? Who is this no narcotics user? Why is your car make and model and license plate not included in this narcotics information? And then they start following you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another issue on top of everything. So I'm agreeing with you. Your case is weird. Your case feels very like
I think they feel like
they got lucky or
yeah,
something,
no,
right?
I feel like they like, well, since we put them up for a traffic stop and we really ain't had nothing on them, well, let's pat them down and see if we can find something.
Yeah,
So they found
I'm
something,
agreeing with that.
and then they
You
was
were
like,
profiled,
okay,
you were followed, you were
right. So this is my thing. Where do the 14th Amendment come in with that? With them putting the handcuffs on me, due process of equal protection by the law, right? Which is the 14th Amendment. So where do that play in when they put the handcuffs on me? They did not read me my Miranda rights, and then the 8th Amendment, cruel or usual punishment inflicted upon me because they did not read me my Miranda rights, and they put me in handcuffs. You know what I mean? And made me feel like I was detained under arrest before they even read my Miranda rights, before they found anything on me.
right. So the Miranda rights part is going to come from the Fifth Amendment. The
Mm-hmm.
Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment are really similar because they both involve due process. Due
Mm-hmm.
process meaning how we write the law and what notification, procedures, that type of thing that you're entitled to.
Mm-hmm.
So they go together, but they're not exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
The Fifth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment is what you're dealing with basically this whole time you're dealing with the police.
Mm-hmm.
The 14th Amendment is going to come into play now that we're in your court proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
14th Amendment is, they're very similar, but basically the Fifth Amendment,
Trumps it.
it protects you from, kind of like what you were saying, like they shouldn't have detained you without due process of law. So when you're dealing with the police and that part of this case, that's where the Fifth Amendment comes in.
Mm-hmm.
The 14th Amendment is now your due process through the court system.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, and it's going to be kind of confusing because like if your Fifth Amendment right wouldn't have been violated, would we even end up in this situation? And then your 14th right
Same thing,
violated.
right?
Right now, your best argument is for the Fifth Amendment violation, which is why we're going to do the Fifth Amendment and Fourth Amendment are the main laws that govern the police interacting with people. So we're going to argue based on both of those.
So when do the
because
14th Amendment come into clause?
It's going to come in your court proceedings. So,
Okay.
if later on down the line, because like I said, there's a lot happening in your case, but like 14th Amendment would come more into play if like your speedy trial right was violated. 14th Amendment could still come in because it involves due process, and like I said, at trial down the road, depending what happens, we could argue based on both of those amendments, because like I said, if your Fifth Amendment right wouldn't have been violated, or if your Fourth Amendment right wouldn't have been violated, and then your Fifth Amendment wouldn't have been violated, then we wouldn't even be in court, and then you wouldn't have had to go through all this. 14th Amendment is more like court proceedings, so like something happened at your trial, or if we lose the suppression hearing and we appeal it and then we realize that the appellate court ruled that them not suppressing the evidence was improper, then your 14th Amendment would have been violated and you're entitled to an appeal, and then the court would remedy that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
8th Amendment is a little different. It's a little confusing. 8th Amendment, doesn't necessarily super apply. It does say the thing about cruel and unusual punishment, but
I feel like it was
that
cruel and
is
unusual punishment when you
also-
put the handcuffs on me.
I understand. It's going, the Eighth Amendment in that instance when they put the cuffs on you isn't necessarily going to apply. The Eighth Amendment is, you know, it involves cruel and unusual punishment, but it also involves like excessive bail.
Well, it inflicted harm upon me because I lost my card. You know what I mean? That's unusual punishment. You know what I mean? You took my card from a ticket, and then on top of that, I ain't never got no ticket.
Yeah.
You ain't wrote me a ticket.
That is also part of our argument that you have faced severe harm based on this.
Right. You could have gave me a ticket,
Yeah.
and I could have paid the ticket, or you could have took the card, and I could have had a better chance of paying for the vehicle.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just, you know, it just don't make sense. Like,
Right.
you caused me a lot of pain and suffering for
Yeah.
what?
And like that's part of our argument as well. It's just not necessarily based on any of the amendments.
So-
It's based on they did all this stuff to you and violated your rights based on the Fourth, Fifth, and possibly 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the result of that? Harm to you as an individual
Right.
based on state action. So also that right there is the 14th Amendment in and of itself because
Right.
it was improper state action and you pay for it in more
Mhm.
ways than one. So
Right.
that is all super valid and that will all come in. It's just, like I said, I know that you have been through a lot and your job has been affected. What I think I'm hearing now is that your next court date, we just need to set this for trial. Does that sound probable or like something you would like to do? I know
I'm just
that
saying,
you-
like if
and we can, it doesn't mean we're gonna go to trial. It's just getting you on the calendar, showing the state, hey, we mean business, we're not taking anything, whatever. And then if we need to do a suppression hearing before trial, we will.
Okay, so-
I just need to figure out, because honestly, I'm gonna keep it real with you. They have not been 100% forthcoming with me and transparent with me about what evidence discovery is available about this narcotics information. At the very, very least, there should be notes from a detective, and I'm entitled to see those. And
Right.
if they're going to try to argue that this doesn't apply to your case, it very clearly does. So there's still some things that I'm trying to find that the state hasn't given me yet. I'm not talking about the drug labs. I just want some type of information on this narcotics investigation.
Right, so ain't that like a violation of a constitution, like a
It could be.
14th Amendment or
It could
something,
be.
or
It
the
could
5th Amendment?
It could be.
So I was looking at this. It says the state of Marion County, state of Indiana versus Colin Antonio McDade, right? So is this? So I have the right to face my accusers, right? Which is the
Correct.
6th Amendment, right? So
Or the Fifth Amendment, but correct.
okay, so the state of Indiana is that a flesh or is it just an entity?
So the cops that pulled you over, that is who your accusers are. All
Okay.
those cops that were there, and technically, I would say these detectives that I don't have anything from.
Okay.
So yeah, you have, it's called the Confrontation Clause, it's part of the Fifth Amendment. You have a right, which this will also come down the road later at trial. The state has to get all their witnesses there. They might not use all the cops to make their case. They're probably gonna use the guy I showed you,
I want
whatever his name was.
these the cops I want.
Yeah, those are the
Justin,
people that should be
Samuel, Philip,
Yeah.
and David.
Right, so that's who they have listed right now, and that's who they would
And-
need
and
to get there
then-
to make their case.
And then on top of that, whoever, because the detective name, I want him,
Yeah,
and I want all the detectives that was there on the scene because they all got to get questioned.
right.
You know what I mean? Why did y'all not stop him because if I want the detectives actually, you know what I mean? You say
Yeah.
you see the hand-to-hand transaction.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you the detective. You know what I mean? Where these detectives were at the gas station to set up the sting operation. So they need to be questioned. Okay, did you see my client, Mr. McDade, make a hand-to-hand transaction?
Yeah,
So if you say no, then that's false. That's false. That's false on the oath.
yeah.
So you lying on the oath. Mind
And
you, on the oath.
and also,
Because it says
if I
right
can't
here.
get the information I need from the detectives, and I probably will anyway, I can set up depositions of the detectives.
Okay.
And that's when they would come into my office, they would be sworn in under oath, and I would get to ask them those questions, and I would ask those questions, and then, you know, depending what happens with that, we can use that information.
Cause the thing, cause like you keep pointing at, this is what they focus on right here.
Yeah.
This the foundation.
That was
So if this is the foundation, it's just the bite, just add extra, which we use the excuse to stop me was for the windshield crack. So that was their excuse to stop me.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's their excuse to stop me, then why did y'all not? So y'all excuse to stop me was to check me, well, not to even check me, see if I had any drugs on me or whatnot. Y'all reason to stop me is to because my windshield was cracked, which was a probable cause, because my windshield was cracked. So if my windshield was cracked and you stopped me and you supposed to gave me a ticket, then why did you not just pull me over and say, hey, we seen you make a hand-in-hand transaction, put your hands up, get out the car,
Right.
Don't move, put the handcuffs on me, read me my remaining rights, let me know what y'all locking me up for, and saying we seen you made a hand-to-hand transaction,
Exactly.
so you being charged for this.
Exactly.
Not for the windshield. So they fucked up because they lying and they trying to come up with some type of excuse, and then they put the
I
key
think they're trying to cover their butt, and I think they're gonna try to.
But they messed up.
They're gonna try to say that they just had enough from your windshield being cracked, right? But that's not true. And
Right.
you and I know that, and this probable cause affidavit shows it.
Mhm.
But I think they're gonna try to separate those two. They're gonna try to say.
So basically,
What I
they
think
gonna
happened-
dismiss the But
We'll have
hold
to see.
on, cause that don't make sense.
We'll have to see.
This won't make sense. I'm supposed to be in traffic court, right? So I'm not in traffic court at all. I ain't got no traffic ticket, nothing. You know what I mean? But I was pulled over for a cracked windshield. So I ain't getting no sanctions for the cracked windshield, but I'm getting sanctioned due to me pulling up in a sting operation that I don't have no idea what's going on. And my nephew and they see a lot of people surrounding my nephew, and he walked to my car, and they see them follow my nephew to the vehicle, and then I proceed to leave.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think what they're gonna try to say is, because remember, to stop someone's car, they need to have a little bit more than reasonable suspicion. They have to have probable cause being a traffic violation to stop you. So they didn't technically, according to why I think they're trying to cover themselves, is they just threw all that stuff in there. They were gonna pull you over for drugs as soon as they could, I guess, right? But they needed to find more information on you, make something up basically for the traffic stop law, because as I said, when you're in the car, it's a little different than being on the person. So if you would have just been walking, they could have just stopped you as a Terry stop for reasonable suspicion.
But
to
that's
stop-
how about the
to stop
Fourth
your
Amendment?
car-
The Fourth Amendment protect a person walking down the street. So that ain't no excuse. So if I'm riding the bike, I'm still protected by the Fourth Amendment. Even if I'm on the bus, I'm protected by the Fourth Amendment.
You're always protected by the Fourth Amendment, but these things that I'm talking to you about like the Terry stop and a traffic stop, those are exceptions to the Fourth Amendment that our law put into place for law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that they didn't violate your Fourth Amendment right, but that's what they're going to try to say, that it falls into these exceptions. And there's a lot of other exceptions.
What
that I
exceptions?
think-
What exceptions are?
So there's a couple different ones. So the first exception we talked about is the Terry stop, which is reasonable suspicion, where they can stop and frisk someone's person. There's other ones that include like extenuating circumstances. That doesn't really apply to you, but they could say that it did because they saw someone commit this crime and in fear of the evidence being destroyed, but there isn't any evidence. That's probably why they didn't use that exception. The other exception is the automobile exception, and then along with that, but the automobile exception to the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to you because they didn't find anything in the car.
Right.
So they can't use that one.
Right, so that's why I follow on the Terry to me, because all that, it like when you read the Terry, I know you're familiar with it. So like when I was reading the Terry clause, it was basically saying like, if it's in open plain sight, it's visual, then I could be charged. but I could be charged. But if
It
it's
wasn't
not in plain view,
Yep.
I know where I could be charged.
Notice how they're just trying to figure out what exception whatever just happened fit into,
Mhm.
right? So, search incident to arrest. They
So
might try to say that, but
you said what?
so I'm talking about these exceptions.
Yeah.
So the number one exception is someone can just consent to the search, which is
Mhm.
what they basically did to your nephew. Search incident to arrest is when they make a lawful arrest. So
Mhm.
when you're already being arrested, then they can search you.
Then that don't comply because I was not being arrested.
Exactly. So they might try to say that it was search incident to arrest. That's
So-
not what I see on this body cam. It went from a traffic stop to a Terry stop. They found drugs, then they read you the Miranda rights. We already talked about the Miranda
Right.
rights argument. The other exception is the extingent circumstances, which they can't get a warrant because they saw a crime happen, they're in hot pursuit, and they need to get to the person really
Right.
fast and get the evidence before it's destroyed. Doesn't really apply
Which
here
don't
because
apply.
they followed you for
Right.
so many blocks.
So that don't apply.
Plain view doctrine doesn't apply. Officer on one of the body cams does try to be annoying about it, and he's like, "Oh, I could have said I smelled weed." They do that all the time to people.
Mhm.
We have that on the body cam. It's from Officer
But,
Robinette.
so-
I could say I
Yeah,
smelled
but
marijuana coming from
you
your car.
could,
Yeah,
but did
exactly.
you?
No, he did it. It's
Right,
somewhere in the report, so
right.
they can't really use that. Plain view doctrine doesn't apply. Automobile exception. Basically, that's just because when you're operating a
Motor
automobile
vehicle.
on the road, you do technically, it's weird, kind of have less rights than you as a person on the road, just a regular human being, because cars can travel,
Mhm.
but and that's why
Or
they
you
did
driving,
search, that's
or
why
you
they
traveling.
did search your car,
Mhm.
but they didn't find anything. And then Terry stop, which we talked about, inventory search would have been after they took your car into the
Mhm.
impound and search
You
everything.
can't- They lost the
Doesn't apply
keys,
there.
and they lost the keys to my car.
Did they?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So even if you can't get the car, it wasn't in your property. That's crazy.
It was not in my property.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
From what I'm hearing, when he tried to get a rouse out of him when he pulled up and he see his hands is out the window
Mhm.
and he's willing to do whatever he asks, so he tries to get a rouse out of the lady on the side. When he know he's gonna get something from that person because they know they're the passenger. You shouldn't ask me anything. I am here just because I got a ride. So she's responding the way she should, and he's getting her to be incomplacent with how he's
Right.
responding to her, but he's trying to get something out of him in order to do all that extra, but he couldn't. And I mean, that's kind of throwing me like he
I know.
planted that.
Oh,
I'm gonna get
yeah.
him to get a rouse out of him. I'm gonna
And
mess
they
this woman
honestly
up.
probably shouldn't have asked her to identify herself anyway. They have been doing this thing, I don't know if you caught it on the body cam, but when they asked her to identify and she's like, I don't have to identify myself, they're like, you're not a seatbelt on, it's a traffic violation. They've been doing that. When the
But she had her
cars
seatbelt
stop-
on.
Yep.
Yeah, and most
And it's-
people take them off.
Exactly.
it's
So
comfortable.
I also think, I agree with what you're saying. They probably shouldn't have even asked her to have to identify herself, but they're also probably going to use this narcotics investigation line. Like, she was in the car of a suspected whatever narcotics investigation thing. So, yeah, I'm agreeing. I don't think her behavior or anything should have applied to you and led everyone in the car to be searched. So they are going to try to say all these things and all these reasons why, but it's all going to come back to everything you said about this narcotics investigation, them following you, and then all
Why
these
y'all
other
ain't stop
things
me right there?
happening. Yeah. So it's just I agree.
Or why y'all let him leave the lot with a cracked windshield? Or why y'all allow him to leave after y'all allegedly seen him make a transaction, a hand-to-hand transaction?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, why he did not get a sanction for a ticket? Not that I want one.
No, you.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
But yeah, I know,
like,
and
I like,
I'm
like,
normal
this got to do with everything that y'all eyes trained to do, right? So this y'all trained for this. So
Yeah.
where's the excuses at for you not giving him a ticket for a windshield, or for you to allow him to leave the parking lot with a cracked windshield, or to allow him to leave the parking lot after you see him make a hand-to-hand transaction?
They don't really have one. but kind of like what we were talking about earlier,
And
they're
then-
gonna say for the integrity to protect this narcotics investigation that we've already talked about, that we all kind of gathering is
Okay, and then on top of that,
distraction, a red herring, a like BS excuse. They just
and who was one of the
You have
males?
said the writing on the wall is there. You were in the wrong place on the wrong time, and you looked a certain way, and they profiled you and they followed you and they tried to stick everything they could, and they're gonna say all these excuses as to why they could do that. But for me, as we just said, it's not adding up for everything from the first maybe 3 paragraphs of your probable cause affidavit. When they saw you at the gas station, followed you all the way to this other gas station on 38th Street, and then boom, 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 all these things happen really fast. And that is where our main argument to suppress the drugs out of your case in court is coming from. Everything else, I still don't necessarily think they have a great case. I mean, we'll see what happens if they get the lab results in. If we get the drugs excluded, I think their case can go away. The case can go away, but they're gonna fight it, obviously.
So fast and speedy. So we could do it fast and speedy.
It won't be a fast and speedy. Fast and speedy, when you're out of custody, just means that they'll try your case within a year.
Oh,
So
okay.
it'll actually be faster for you if I just request it at our next court date. It'll probably be set out a couple months. Fast and speedy is more helpful for people that are in custody, because then you get 70 days.
Okay.
So if you're okay with it at next week,
I'm
want
just-
me to set it with I don't have to, because I do still have some more information I would like to get out of the state, and if I want to set depositions, but you know, I know you want to get this case handled.
Yeah, so I would like for you to do this. Because I would like for you to do the depositions.
Okay, so you want me to ask for a pretrial conference?
Yeah, so this before we consent to it, I was like, what is your percentage rate of you know what I mean, about this case?
What do you mean?
Like, what is your percentage rate, like how you feel like beating this case, or
I
coming
feel like
with a plea, or what, getting these charges dropped?
Couple things. I think we have a good argument to get the drugs suppressed out of the case completely. I need to get more information first on this, just so I know everything that's going on about this detective, whatever, narcotics investigation. I have a few other questions about leading up to it, and I also want to see if there's any body cam that we don't have. I think we have all of it, but just to double check. So if we can get the drugs suppressed, which I think we have probably about a 60 to 70% chance of getting the drugs suppressed. That's not anything about you and me or what I do, but, you know, in any situation, in situations like that in court, it's me arguing against the prosecutor, and then the judge has to decide on it. I don't know if the judge is gonna, I wouldn't necessarily say that, oh, for sure the judge is gonna grant it, you know, it's gonna come down to
because my
us
history.
arguing. Right, and it's the basis for the case, and, you know, we live in Indiana, it's involving officers not doing their job. It's a very important argument to make, and I have, during trial, pointed this out to jurors and a judge, and it's been in my favor, that people see that either the judge or the jurors see, hey, why was this not done? As your defense attorney, when we go to trial, the state is bringing the case against you. I actually...
Who's the state?
The prosecutors, and then their witnesses are gonna be the cops that pulled you over.
Okay,
right?
so that's what I was trying to
They're
understand.
trying to prove the case against you, and they're trying to prove you guilty of these 2 charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Because you're charged with a level 6 felony, you're entitled to a jury trial.
Can the state charge me?
They already charged you.
I mean, can they find me guilty, the state?
It wouldn't be the state, it would be the jury, right? Because,
I don't want no jury.
okay, so you'd rather do like a bench trial just in front of a judge?
Yeah, because I'm just saying, like, how can the state find me guilty if the state ain't got no flesh?
It wouldn't technically be the state finding you guilty. The state's just gonna present this case
against
you with this evidence that they have, and then I'm gonna argue against it.
So-
It's their burden and their job to try to prove you beyond a reasonable doubt guilty of these charges, right?
So an agent can find me guilty?
The judge could find you guilty. If we don't do a jury trial, it would be what we call a bench trial, and the judge would hear both of our arguments and then rule on he thinks you're guilty.
So
of
do
these
I
charges.
have to be a sovereign citizen to be to get the charges? Cause you know when they ask me in the courtroom, is this you? And my name is corporations in all caps. Is there any way I could get the penalties under my corporation, under my name like this? Cause this is a corporation right here, right? So every time I get locked up under this corporation, which is my name, the state getting paid off of it, right? It's called sovereignty or straw man, right? So, so I could use I ain't got access to the UCC1 or UCC2, which is the financial transaction under this corporation, which is my name in capital letters, which is me in the flesh, right? So how can I get that put into my corporation? Because this what I'm going to court for, not me in the flesh. I'm going for the corporation, which is my name, right?
So are you trying to say that, or if,
Because
just trying to understand this correctly, so this charge right here is against Colin Antonio McDade, the person. I am not super familiar with sovereign citizens. I am aware that they're out there, and I'm aware kind of what they believe in, and I know that I'm aware of some of the arguments that they make in court, but I am not 100% sure how or what that means. This charge right here is against you as a person.
me as a person,
You as a person. And, you know, what they're saying is, I mean, that is part of the charge, that they have to prove that it's you. And they did have your learner's permit when they pulled you over.
which
And
was my
I don't
identification.
remember, let me look through this really quick.
Which was my documents, right?
Right.
Which they confirmed as an ID.
Confirmed as an ID, and they have your
identification.
birthday and your social security number.
Which is my social security number is my banking.
And then they also have this booking information with your picture.
See now, like you see the
birthday.
difference. Like they got me right here in the flesh, right? They got me here in the flesh with the lowercase spelling in my name. That's me in the flesh as a person.
Right.
So in the courtroom, this is me as a corporation with my name in all capital letters, right? So when they ask me, is this you
Well, that's
in the
just,
courtroom?
so this is just the heading for your case, so everyone's names are in all capital letters. So that's just the truth. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with the sovereign citizen type of arguments. It's just, what this case means is they did charge you as a person. How they did that was, they asked you to identify yourself during the traffic stop, you gave them a learner's permit, identified by your name as well, and then they have your birthday, so their social security number, and then I'm checking this evidence really quick to see, and then when you were in the jail, you were fingerprinted, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't have your fingerprints, but you were processed through the jail and they gave you a gallery number. So I am not super familiar with, I kind of understand what you're saying, it's just I don't have any experience making that type of argument, but the case is against you as a person, as a family.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out how the state could find me guilty, and the state is not a flesh. You know what I mean? So, you know, in the court, you got the right to this, which is the Sixth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment. You have the right to face your accuser. So if the state can't present a person in the flesh, then the state can't charge. The state can charge, but they can't find me guilty.
Well, so the cops that are involved in your case are state actors. So when
State agents.
Right.
For
so
the
they're
government.
gonna say
Government
that's
agents.
the state. The
Oh.
state is two different things, right? The state is bringing the case against you. That is just kind of like
And the agents arrested me. So
Right.
so by them, so by the agents, that work for the people, right? So that means all citizens, you know what I mean, that pay taxes, or if you don't, you know what I mean, they're here to protect and serve you. So they agents. So you got the agents, and then you got the sheriff, right? Which is the sheriff department. So you got the sheriff departments, then you got agents. So the agents, they work for the government, right? And the sheriff department, who they work for, is a different type of entity. You know what I mean? Like the Ku Klux Klans, you know what I mean? They got their sovereignty. More signs tip of America, they sovereign citizens. So that's why they don't need a driver's license or identification to identify themselves, because they sovereign citizens, they self-government. You know what I mean? So when they get charged with a charge, it'd be put up in capital letters, which is their corporate, you know what I mean, the corporation of them as an entity, you know what I mean? So when you go into the courtroom, you know, you have certain documents that say that you're a sovereign citizen. So, and then, you know, you can have the option to put the charges under your corporate, you know what I mean, because this is a penalty. So you getting charged for a penalty. So you pay for the penalty under your corporation, you know what I mean? So I learned this by being locked up, you know what I mean? And I just been reading, like, because I'm anti-government, you know what I mean?
I've
so
heard
like
a lot of the things you're saying. I just myself have not encountered.
Right, so I had the paperwork when I was in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was getting released, they did away with a lot of my property because I filed the lawsuit on the officer for excess of force, and I won $20,000. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you locked up, all you do is study the law. Mm-hmm. That's what I did my time, to study the law. You know what I mean? So in the Constitution. So that's why I know so much, somewhat of. You know what I mean, when it comes to these documents and me dealing with the corporate justice system.
Right.
You
And
know?
I'm not saying that there's not an argument to be made there. I don't know it right now off the top of my head. So
Right.
as, you know, the state of Indiana is the body that made the laws, right?
Right.
And so that's why your case is the state of Indiana versus your name. Mm-hmm. So the state of Indiana makes the laws.
Because Indiana, that's the whole Indiana. I'm versus the whole Indiana. So that's big. So the whole Indiana is not a flesh. It's a state.
I know, but then remember that. So the state of Indiana's up here. They wrote the laws, and they're saying you violated the law.
Who said I violated the law?
Their agent, the police.
Uh-huh.
The police ran their police investigation, and then they turned it over to the prosecutor's office. That's also the state of Indiana,
right.
The agent of the state. The prosecutor's office, allegedly, according to what I've been told, went through your case and then realized that, hey, we think he did these charges, and we're going to take him to court. And
so that means he committed criminology on me due to his officers being an agent of the state. So basically,
the officers and the prosecutor are kind of working together
right.
as the state. They handle the investigation to a certain point when it gets turned over to the prosecutor, and then, you know, the prosecutor brings your case through the judicial system.
Right. So the police that stopped me, the agents, they got my information and they wrote down whatever they wrote down in their documents, right? So when they put it in their profile, it goes to the prosecutor, which is over the state. He's the state of Indiana, right? But he ain't the state of Indiana. He just worked for the state of Indiana, but he's a prosecutor for the state of Indiana, which is a whole big old state.
That's a different part
so
of the law.
So now when the prosecutor looked at the case and read and gained understanding and knowledge of what the officers had documented on these papers, and it shows to him that they violated this Constitution, the 4th and the 5th. They violated the 14th, and then they violated a person's First Amendment of the federal Constitution. Which is the federal Constitution is the bottom of all case sites. So you got to learn the federal Constitution so you can learn how to fight law, right? So if you don't know the Constitution, then you can't fight law. Right, so you get railroaded, get misguided, hoodwinked, bamboozled, you know what I mean, to get tricked into something you don't know.
What you're saying is true, but even though they probably did see all that stuff, their standard for bringing the case against you is still just probable cause. Right now, you have just been, in the eyes of the law, which a lot of people need to understand this, because unfortunately, as I'm sure you can guess, this is not how society already sees it. You've only been accused. These are only allegations. When we go to trial, and we go through a whole trial, and then the judge or the jury makes a determination or a verdict, and then you're sentenced, only then are you proven guilty. Or, you know what I mean? So right now, what you're saying is 100% correct. And I'm not trying to sound crass when I say that the state might have looked at all your evidence and didn't care that all of this stuff happened to you and still filed these charges. But also, they only need probable cause to bring the charges. And that's nothing about you. They know that people don't know their rights. Not saying you do, you don't, but they know people don't know their rights. They know that when people have a criminal case against them, they're gonna get scared and they're gonna wanna get it taken care of. And they don't care if it's right, and they don't care if they can prove the case, and they don't care if it affects people.
So that's called
all
what?
They want to look like is, hey, we did our job protecting the people of the state of Indiana.
So that's criminology.
We charged this guy. I'm not familiar with that. But
criminology? That means committing a
be.
crime on a criminal or a person that you allege to say committed a crime, but
Right.
you are like, it's solitude. You know what I mean? So if you incarcerated, you were in solitude, you isolated. You know what I mean? You getting mistreated while you incarcerated, which is criminology.
Yeah.
And even though you out here and you free or somewhat free, you know what I mean? You still getting criminology projected upon you due to their actions. So he read the paperwork, he understood it, and thinking that everybody don't know they law. I'm not no pushover.
I know.
I believe in God. I don't believe
They're
in.
just
I believe
saying
in
they
the
have
Creator.
probable cause to charge you with what they charge you with,
Right.
and they're basically kicking the can down the road to, if this case goes to trial, to then try to prove it.
Right. So
That's it.
why waste our time and just dismiss it
I know.
so I can continue with my life out here in
You want me
society?
to tell you why? Because they want to convict you.
Yes, I know they do.
They want people to give up and get tired of being in the court system and take a plea agreement.
And that's what got
And
me,
it's
because
messed up.
that was got me, because I know it's a lot of public defenders that willing to fight. You know what I mean? Because they know what's right, but they can't do it alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 'Cause I know it's hard. You know what I mean? And I just, you know what I mean? I'm willing to work with you as long as you're willing to work with me.
I appreciate it. I apologize. I know that you've been trying to get in contact with me, and I'm glad we got to have this meeting today. I just needed some time to go through everything and figure out what else I need. But yeah, I everything I said to you, I do truly believe. I mean, this case is still pending, and there's a couple things we got to figure out, but you know, the issues that we talked about are definitely there, and it's definitely fishy and suspicious the way that the police and the state of Indiana in general ran their investigation.
And do you know what's crazy? My baby mother, she just passed this year. So her birthday on the 22nd. I go to court on the 23rd, which is Wednesday, which is next week. So my daughter, she was crying last night. My daughter, she grown, and I got a grandson. She was crying last night because her mother's birthday coming up. My son, he getting bad grades in school. I just went up to the school before I came up here to bring him some lunch. And they showed me his report card. Parker's coming out tomorrow. He got F's. You know? So I'm like, this taking effect on my kids, you know what I mean? So, and then I'm trying to be a man to my children, the father to them, you know what I mean? And then it's feel like, cause I'm homeless, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm working, but you know what I mean? It's kind of hard for me to get my crib, you know what I mean? Due to my history, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm trying. I ain't gonna never give up because quitting is not an option. But when this happens, like, it opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff. Like, man, you know, you was tripping. You know what I mean? If you was gonna get high, you could have left it at the house and then went. You know what I mean? I ain't had to have it on. You know what I mean? So a lot of thoughts went through my head. You know what I mean? Then when I was locked up for the 2 days, only thing I could think about was like, I just buried my wife. You know what I mean? And my kids, I'm putting my kids through this, and I just came home, just did 8 years, and I'm putting my kids through this. Nah, Jack. So, you know, I pray, I meditate, you know, and I became with understanding more, you know what I mean, to this society, you know what I mean? So I got my license now, I got my endorsements for her, and now me and her, we studying for our CDLs, you know what I mean? So, because I understand, like, I don't want to put myself in a camp and be isolated from my kids that need me, you know what I mean? So everybody make mistakes, you know what I mean? Some people get away with stuff, a lot of people don't, you know what I mean? So, and then by me being locked up, it's like, I've seen so many people hang themselves, kill themselves. I'm in Michigan City, the worst prison in Indiana. So I see people killing themselves because they turned gay and they was about to go home, they didn't want to go home like that, they killed themselves, or COs letting inmates die, you know what I mean, because they can't breathe back there, you know what I mean. We screaming medical emergency, the COs ain't coming because they be calling medical emergency so much. It's like boy cry wolf, so now they don't want to come. But when the situation really transpired, you know what I mean, I seen a lot of people die within that little minute of time I was down there, you know what I mean. So I was like, and then by me being in there, it was like, I ain't got no family that can really send me no money, you know what I mean, I can rely on, depend on, so why would I put that on them or put me through that again, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm taking the necessary steps to make sure that I do what I need to do while I'm out here, you know what I mean, to stay out here for my kids. So that's what I've been doing. So we got to go back to work one, that's what we still getting that for CDLs, you know what I mean? So, you know, and I'm only doing that because she taking it, because she got the core, you know what I mean? She got her own house and all this and that. She a good person, you know what I mean? She understand what I'm going through, you know what I mean? So, and she see my transition, you know what I mean? So it's like.
And I hear you, and I want you to get back to normal too. I know this case, it's a mess, it's very stupid, I don't know why they were wasting their time on this, and I know it affects people's lives, and you shouldn't be continually re-punished for things you did in the past, especially people that are trying and people that are here for their kids and have a job and getting their CDL license. You're exactly what the court and the state ask people to do every time, and yet they still try to bring you guys down. It's not okay. And I 100% feel you, and I know this is inconvenient and affecting your lives, and I do want you to get back to normal, and I want this case to go away, and I will try, as everything we talked about, to get it taken care of. It's just, it's unfortunate, but I can't snap my fingers and it be done, you know, so it's gonna take some time. I'm working on your case. Everything I talked about is true, and when I went through all the stuff.
I see it in your eyes.
So, you know, just keep doing you. Sounds like you're already on the right path, and we'll just have to keep pushing through the process. It sucks, it really does. It's annoying, you have other things to worry about, you're needed other places, but, you know, it's definitely, we have stuff here that's working in our favor, I think.
Okay, so now if you feel like, cause I know you made that option. So if you wanna do the trial, we can. But if you need time before you put in for the trial, cause you say you need to do a lot of other stuff, you can do that, and you can just let me know when you want to start put in for the trial or whatever.
I think I'm gonna ask for one more pretrial conference next week. That will it'll be set in what we say due course. It's usually a court about once a month, so it'll be once a month, and then I'll put it on the trial calendar. I can always file something to get it moved up, but let me just see. I don't think there is anything about this narcotics investigation, but let me at least try to get it in my records that I did my due diligence. I have asked the state for it before. They said they would look into it, haven't heard back. We'll see if there's anything. At the very, very least, I know for a fact that the detectives are supposed to have some type of notes, and I am entitled to see those notes. They can try to say that I'm not because it's not related to your case, but it very clearly is. So if there's nothing, we'll deal with it. But I think we'll do one more pre-trial conference and then send it for trial, if that's okay with you.
Yes, fine.
Okay, perfect. And I know we already talked about this, but the state and the judge are probably going to be talking about an offer. It doesn't mean I want you to take an offer. It doesn't mean that I think that you should take an offer.
What do you think the offer would be consist of?